Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Living Better with Joe and Kat. Today, we're going to be having our session without Steven, our producer. He has not been feeling well, and he's a little under the weather. Last week, it was Joey that was under the weather, so
Darn it.
hopefully I won't be getting it. So, my introduction is I'm Kat,
And I'm Joe.
Yeah, and there's Joe.
I'm back.
Yeah.
Did you guys miss me?
Yes, honey, we missed you dearly.
Aw.
And it's always nice when we have the whole team together, but we have to be able to accommodate and
Gotta be flexible.
be flexible and work around for when we're not able to have the whole group.
So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, this last week, it was a bit of a different week. We experienced two recent deaths close to our family, and it was two younger men that their leaving is going to leave really large voids for their families and friends. And I just wanted to touch on the topic a little bit about, how death affects us and maybe some coping strategies because, everybody, if you haven't experienced it yet in your life, you probably will be experiencing death and death of a loved one or somebody close to you or something that will impact you. And I just wanted to touch over a few subjects. We've experienced losses in our family, and I think that when we can talk about our experiences, it helps other people, first of all, to know that they're not alone with their feelings, but it also, if we can, offer what was helpful to us, then it might be some suggestions that would be helpful for other people.
I agree.
So, anyway, I know that, to give you guys some back history, I've worked in the hospital setting for, decades, very long time. And I worked in a really high acuity area, meaning there was a lot of trauma. I worked around ER, ICU, OR. I worked in the deep bowels of the hospital. So death was something that from the age of 19 when I started doing clinicals, it's something that I've had to function with and deal with.
And how did you deal with that? Seeing that on a regular basis? People that you would take care of that would come in and you'd have to give them a CT scan or X-ray. I mean, how do you deal with that? Knowing that
I can tell you,
dying?
I'm going to give you guys the story of the first person that I witnessed dying in my presence in the hospital setting. And actually, I think the first person I ever witnessed dying ever. Because I was only 19, I was young. It was this young mom that came into the trauma rooms. She was in what they would consider a minor accident. Her two kids were in the car with her. And I've already given you the spoiler because she dies. But at the time they brought her in on the backboard, she was alert, oriented, and just telling me about the car accident while I was setting up the room and doing her exam. And, her kids were out in the waiting room. They were young. They were like 3 and 5. They were little kids. They were out in the waiting room with her parents who met the ambulance at the hospital. And she is visiting with me the entire time that I'm doing her exam, and I asked her a question and she didn't answer me. And I looked over my shoulder and her eyes had rolled back in her head and she was unresponsive. So I immediately called for the trauma team to come in. It was, for being my first experience being a young green tech, it was quite... when a trauma team is in action, there's nothing pretty about it.
Well, you're just trying to focus on getting her back and not.
They got down to business. It was the first time I ever seen a saw come out. The first time I ever seen somebody's chest opened.
Wow.
And what had happened to her is she wasn't wearing a seatbelt.
She had an aneurysm.
Her chest hit the steering wheel and it caused an aortic aneurysm by trauma, and it basically unzipped. So the main blood vessel coming off the heart, if you can imagine like a pantyhose that gets a run. Once it starts, it just bzzz, goes all the way up. And, she lost pressure, and they worked hard on her to try and save her because she was so young and vital. And, she had 2 babies out in the waiting area. And they declared her because they couldn't bring her back. And the trauma team just walked out of my room, and they left her there. And here's this, young woman that I was just visiting with
was there, and then now she's gone.
Right. It didn't hit me yet. There was just, her open chest, retractors holding her chest open. She was intubated. So there was just, and then if you can imagine a trauma scene, there's just blood and gauze and inside out gloves dropped on the floor. It was a trauma room.
Yeah.
And as the nurse was leaving, I go, who's going to help me clean my room up? I mean, what do I do with this? And she says, well, you'll have to take her down to the morgue. And I was like, I don't even know where the morgue is.
Let alone, I really don't want to go down there.
No, I didn't care about that. I was just like, I'm by myself in the room with this horrific, like, war-torn mess. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll grab a couple of the transporters in my department, and we'll get her slid over onto a gurney, and I'll figure out where the morgue is. And
so did they come and
take her where she goes? So
help you? Well,
of course, we had a little bit of, I hate to say this, but we had a little bit of fun with the transporters because they were from Africa, and they were a little spooky around dead people. And they didn't want to come in the room. They were just like really, sketched out. Yeah. We walked him through it. We got through it, and we got the patient down to the morgue. But as we were moving her off of the trauma table onto the gurney, I was at the bottom with her feet, helping slide her over. And it was when the person at the head was lifting her over, her head flopped forward, that I was just like, oh my God,
she's really gone.
She's dead.
Yeah. Wow.
Even though, I was there for that whole experience. It was just kind of shocking. And I think that's why I didn't realize that. And, of course you could hear her family crying, and, the kids, they didn't understand what was going on. They were too young, but, it was just, it was just sad, very sad. And at that point, it really gave me that real world concept that she had no idea she was going to die that day. She had no idea.
She was in a minor accident, bumps, bruises, maybe a couple things broken.
Exactly.
And then you're dead. Wow.
You're gone.
Yeah. Wow.
And, at a very young age, I was able to wrap my head around that concept. And so from that time forward, I've been very conscientious that I want to leave each day the way I want to leave it. So I intentionally try not to cause upsets. I intentionally try to be kind. I truly do. It's important to me that when somebody thinks about me, that they think a kind thought. That's a goal for me in life. And, it was that awareness that was brought to me at such a young age. And I needed to have that awareness for the kind of work that I did. And you've lived with me for all of that time. I think you could attest to that. Really is how I try to walk through my life. Absolutely. I don't throw out barbs and hurtful things because that's not how I would want to leave my day if I were to not return from my day.
You're very kind, very compassionate. Yeah.
But it's intentional. Yeah. And I think that again is something that when people can realize that living with intention, there's a reason that people live intentionally.
Yeah.
And, people have different reasons for living with intention, but that was mine. I don't ever want to leave this world in a sense of bad words or a bad relationship, or, if I can make it right, I try to make it right then. And that's why.
Well, it's better to, do that, solve the problem right then than let it fester for weeks,
Yeah.
months, whatever. It
Yeah.
gets worse. So
Well, and later in the years, my mother, my mom experienced a lot of loss in her life. When she was pregnant with me, she lost a twin that was 18 months old. Not her twin. She delivered twins before me. I had twin brothers. She was pregnant with me. And when she was 7 months pregnant with me, one of those twins drowned.
and that was Ernie.
Ernie died.
Yeah.
And, and then later down through the years, the other brother, Eddie, he died in a motorcycle accident. And my mom and I had a really, she was upset with me because I wasn't crying to the level of appropriateness for her to understand that I was hurting over that. And
I think everybody grieves in their own way, though, and grieve in their own time.
Amen.
And you don't always grieve in front of me when something's going on. You'll walk off and think about it, and I'm the same way. I may not. Well, I shouldn't say that. I'm a very emotional person, so
I'm a private person, and I think a lot of it has to do with the manner in which I was raised. I was just told out loud, pull yourself together.
Yeah.
My dad was hard on us that
Yeah.
way. He would not allow us to have emotions, which part of is why I'm such a fucked up mess.
Yeah. You're not a screwed up
I've
mess.
got my daddy issues I'm still dealing with. But anyway, we were talking, and my mom was upset with me because she really felt like I was happy that my brother got killed on a motorcycle because she felt like I wasn't able to express myself in a way that she felt like that she understood, because she was very emotional and she cried a lot, and I would too if I were to lose Stephen or Megan. I don't know if I could fight back the tears or if I could hold my composure.
Right.
But my mom said to me, during one of these conversations that we had when she was so frustrated with me, she was like, I hope you never know the pain that I've known. And I agreed with her. I said, I hope I never do too. Mm-hmm. And it just...
But like you said, you were taught that way by at least your dad. I don't know about your mom, that, shut up and suck it up,
But also remember, I'm going to say my dad's rough training for the household that I grew up in, it did set me up for success, to be a very competent and able-bodied healthcare employee. I can walk into the most emotional hardship. I can trudge through a lot of things because I was trained at an early age how to shut off my feelings. And that's not necessarily a good thing.
No.
But I reminded my mom when we were talking that we don't own anyone, because she was really in this, as she spoke, that was my baby, that was my son, mine. And she really held to the conjecture that she owned people. She owned anybody that she loved. She owned them. And I had to remind her that we
Not
don't
the way it works.
we don't own anyone.
No.
And as much as I love you, as much as I love our children, I don't own you, and I don't own my kids. Not even when they were little. I was responsible for them, but I don't own them. And I really tried to get my mom to wrap her head around the idea that we need to appreciate
Each other.
every person,
Yeah.
no matter how close they are to us or how insignificantly distant, like a stranger passing through. You need to appreciate every person as a gift. And sometimes the gift does leave. But instead of being bitter that the gift is gone, it
Be
needs
happy
to
for
be...
what you got.
It needs
out
to,
of-
yeah, it's like that, that saying that, it's better to have loved and lost
Than not loved at all.
than to have never loved at all. And
I agree with
and
that.
so you have to really take every single person that comes through your life, whether it's somebody that's been there for a long time or somebody that's just in passing. They're gifts. Each human being is their own individual entity. And And, you know, you shouldn't take people for granted. And I think that's where people have regrets when there is a loss. It's like, I should have told them
But you
how much
didn't.
I love them.
Why didn't you tell them that when they were alive?
I should have spent more time.
Yeah.
I should have. And that's where the breeding ground for regret is. And
Yeah.
I truly, 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 I mean, you know me better than anybody else, even my bestest girlfriends. I truly try to live my life without regret. And if I notice there's something going on that's uncomfortable, I really try to rectify it as soon as possible. And of course, there's mishaps. You know, my brother that died in the motorcycle accident, you know, he was upset because his life had been turned upside down with some bad choices with drinking and driving. And he wanted to run away from his problems and come and live in our home where we're raising our kids, to run away from his problems. And I reminded him,
Problems are still going to be there.
Eddie, you have children and a wife. You can't just run away because you have issues that you've created. And that really made him mad. And so I sat down and I wrote him a letter
I remember that.
and I mailed it to him. And the day that it was delivered to his mailbox, he never got it. He died
Yeah.
that afternoon. And
But you know what?
or no, it was that morning.
He had that was a good day for him, if I remember right.
He had a great day.
He got his license back from being suspended.
Yep.
He was on top of the world.
He was going fishing.
It was a beautiful day. He was going fishing at, I don't want to say it's Lake Powell, whatever lake is up there. that
Park
he was
City.
going to. Yeah, Park City, Utah. He was having a great day. And, you know, all it took was for him to, you know, slide the back wheel in some loose gravel, and that was it.
He was twisting the tail of that new motorcycle
he
that
was having fun.
he had collected while he was not driving.
Yeah.
And that was that bike's day to go out for its first run.
Yeah.
And it was taking him fishing at Park City.
Yeah.
And he went around a corner and he hit some of that silty gravel on the edge,
Lost it.
and it just, you know, well, the witnesses said that he recovered it. They were amazed that he recovered it, but then the curve turning to a sharp left, he couldn't control it, and he was going really fast because he was twisting the tail of this new bike. He wanted to see what it had.
Yeah.
And he was taken from us. And
But he was living life that day.
he was living
You know?
life. And so even though he didn't get that letter I sent to him and read it, my mom had mentioned to him, your sister is sending you a letter.
So at least he kind of knew it.
And when
was
you
on
read
its
it,
way.
you need to read it. You got a cold. You still coughing. But she told him, you need to read it and know that your sister is sending this from a place of love. So he knew that there was at least some reconciliation of some sort coming, and it may be upsetting for him, but it was a reconciliation. So long story short, I ended up folding the letter up. It was still sealed because his wife gave it to me and said he didn't get your letter. And it was sad. But you know what? I folded it up and I stuck it in the shirt pocket while he was in the casket, patted him on the chest, and I said, dude, you're taking it with you.
Yeah.
And that
I
was,
have a feeling he's probably read that letter by now.
oh, you know what? When I think this is my own personal belief, but I think that when we pass away and we shed our bodies, our flesh and blood, I believe that our soul is still with those that we love,
I do too.
and that, you know, we're reunited with God. And I think that, you know, well, actually, I could go into even another story about death and dying, and actually I will, because I don't know if I'll ever have an opportunity. Several months after my brother died, he came to me in a dream, and it was just this super joyous reuniting, and I was jumping up and down and I was hugging him, and you know, he would just, oh my gosh, you look great, how are you, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see you. Pardon me. And you know, I know some people may say I was dreaming about him, but I wasn't dreaming about him. I was actually there with him. He was in my presence.
Well, we have another incident that happened
In my-
that would prove that.
I know, but in my dream, he was with me.
Right.
And we talked, and he told me, don't ever be afraid of dying, is what he said to me. And he says, it's really great here. And I said, tell me what's so great about it. And he told me, he says, I could try to put it in words that you'd understand, but it still wouldn't make sense. He said, just believe me. It's really great here. And he went on to tell me about, he said, Ernie, his twin, was there. Grandpa that went before us was there. Grandma, he says there's so many people that were there to greet him when he died. And he says, and then there were more. There was more. It wasn't just our family. It was more. And we talked about all kinds of stuff. We talked for a long time. And I remember the conversations. And at the end, he says, would you do me a favor? And I said, sure, anything. And he says, tomorrow morning, will you go up and have coffee with Mom? Because she just lived up the street. Mm-hmm. Will you go up and have coffee with her and tell her that she can quit crying, that I'm okay? And I was like, done. I'll do it. And I did. Remember, I woke up and I had a daycare at that time. And I said, Joey, I need you to watch the daycare. I've got to go up and talk to Mom. Yeah. So I walked into her house and she was sitting on her sun porch having her morning cup of coffee and cigarette. And she says, hey, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I came to talk to you. I've got to tell you something. And she goes, I got to tell you something too. She said, Eddie came to see me last night. And I go, did he really? And I kept it to myself. I said, what did he say? Because he sent me up here to tell you something. And she said, word for word, he told me I can quit crying now, that he's okay. And I go, well, that was exactly what I came up here to tell you. He came to see me last night, and that was his message. But because I had waited to tell her about it, it confirmed to me even further that I didn't dream about him. Yeah. She confirmed to me that he visited both of us. And her story of his visit was very similar to mine. I think I had more time with him and more details because I was asking questions. I wanted to know, not only are you okay, but what the heck happens once you leave here? Right. And it was significant. And I think that brings a lot of calm to my heart. And if I can share that with anybody that's listening, that my brother would never lie to me. And it really concreted to me that there is something beyond this realm of life as we know it. And, we're just like earthworms. We think we're the smartest thing around and we think we got it all figured out. But we don't have it all figured out. We are like little earthworms as far as brains. I agree. And, the God that I love and, I've always had love for God. But to have a loved one, to have the gift of him coming to me and telling me what he said was a gift. And
to have your mom repeat the same thing was like, wow, that just gave me goosebumps. Oh, wow.
Well, it's relevant. Yeah. And, and if this is a gift that I can share with other people moving forward. I mean, anybody that knows me has heard this story because I always want to spread peace. I always want to spread love. And I want to deliver happiness. That really is my goal in life. Amen. And I am so misunderstood. There's failed relationships in my history. I'm misunderstood, but I really try to speak plainly. But anyway, with the two recent deaths that we had happen around us, this last week, these were both young men. One was in his late 30s, and I believe the other one was in his early 40s. If he turned 40, no, Uriah.
Ronnie was older in 30s.
No, I think Ronnie was like 38. I think that's about where he was. Yeah. But, if any of these families are listening, I want you to know that the Heap family sends their most sincere condolences. Yeah. And, I know it sounds like words, if we can do anything, please let us know. But, I've already reached out to those family members and told them that I'm here and I mean it. I am here. Yeah. And if I can, bring any sense of soothing or salve to their raw, hurt souls, because it's hard when you lose someone you love. I mean,
it's hard on me when we lost your mom.
Yeah, I was just going to say that was probably the biggest, most relevant loss in our family. Yeah. I mean, even to this day, we all get misty-eyed. She's been gone for 5 years. I know. And we miss her.
Hard to believe. Yeah, I do. That was really tough on me. It was tough on you. It was tough on Stephen. It was tough on Megan. It was tough on everybody. It's sad.
Well, she accomplished her goal. She told me when I had Megan, well, I told her because she lived in Oklahoma and we were already out in Oregon. We were having a conversation and I told her, I said, I really want you to move out here. And she's like, no, I can if I might, I don't know. And I told her, I said, what makes me really sad is that when you die, my kids are not going to understand why I'm crying for you. Mm-hmm. You're just going to be the grandma that visits once a year. Yeah, they'll know who you are, but there's not going to be that emotional connection. And that was it. She moved right out here. Yeah. And her goal was she wanted to have a relationship with her grandkids, our kids, and have it be a meaningful relationship so that she would be missed when she's gone. And I'm going to say, I'm pointing up to heaven, Mom, mission accomplished, because we all miss her every day. We still miss her. She was a really bubbly, bright light in the world. And I know that she was misunderstood by a few people too.
Yeah. Well, I fought with her a lot over stupid, silly things, but
you and her had passion.
We loved hard, and I'd help her go out and plant flowers and stuff in the yard, and
you fought hard. You lived hard.
I would just plant daffodils in a place where she'd go, they're never going to grow. I don't know why you're planting them there. Don't do that. Dumb move. And prove her wrong. I'd prove her wrong. It's like, no, I'm going to plant the damn flowers.
You're like, if God wants these flowers to come up, they're coming up.
They're going to grow. And they were totally in a shady, no sun whatsoever. And the first time I planted them and they come up, she's just like, I'll be a son of a bitch. Them came up.
Yeah.
It was just fun. It was fun to mess around
You and her had fun little competition with each other.
We did.
We did. There was a lot of love.
A lot of love, and it took me a long time to get past that.
I still don't think you are. I mean, I just teared up talking about her. Your lips in that weird little curve where I can tell you're feeling it. I think tough. When because we've had these recent passings close to our family this week, it just kind of brings back feelings of loss for all the people that you've loved and lost.
Yeah. Well, it's even with my own parents. I wish I had a closer relationship with them. I wish they would have got to meet my son, wonderful son, and my wonderful daughter. My dad's still alive, but Mom's gone. Sad that she didn't get to be a part of them and their life.
Well, even your dad chooses not to.
Yeah, he just chooses
to this day.
Yeah.
So,
all out of ignorance.
I mean, we're not the only family that has weird dysfunction.
Yeah.
But it's how you choose to deal with it and how you move on. And I agree. It is sad that the people in your family didn't take an interest to know your life and to know your successes.
I would tell you, though, out of all my brothers and sisters, and Bo, I know you're going to be listening to this, so I'm going to say it.
And Aubrey, too.
And Aubrey, you have both been very supportive with everything that Kathy and I have gone through, going through counseling, and I do want to say I really appreciate it. And both Aubrey and Bo have came out and seen the kids and see what
they love our family, and we appreciate their participation.
Yeah,
I think every human being just wants to be acknowledged and loved, and
feel wanted, feel needed.
Right?
What can I do to help?
Yeah, to be wanted.
Yeah.
So, anyway, it's been kind of a heavy topic today, listeners, and I hope that you're able to hang in there, because I know that some of the little pearls of wisdom I've shared today have been really relevant for comfort in my soul. And I try to bring comfort to those around me. And, anybody that's listening, I want you to know that I love and care about you, because I love and care about all people.
Same here.
Yeah. Well, this is a little bit of a serious subject, but I think we're going to be signing off here in just a minute. I do want to also let our listeners know that we have had to put a little bit of a pause on our video making because
circumstances.
Well, we're trying to do Man Mondays every Monday, Woman Wednesday every Wednesday, And because of illnesses in our family and deaths around us, we have had our hands full and not been able to keep up with that schedule.
Yep.
So I do want to apologize to anybody that has been coming to our site and not finding it. I don't want to feel like a failure in that note, but I also know that life happens.
Yes, it does.
And this is something that we're doing for fun in our family. And also we want to just share with others. So when we're able to get back on track with that, we will announce it. We are going to stick to the podcast because we are getting more responses with podcasts. But if you want to go and look at our other videos we've made, you can find us on YouTube at Living Better with Joe and Kat. And we're also on Apple Podcast and Google Podcast. And I just want to say goodbye to everybody.
You guys have a great week, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Yeah, we just want to live better with love, peace, and happiness. God bless.